What's going on? I'm Evan with GET Longboards, and today I'm going to walk you through on how to repair your powder skate base in the unfortunate event that you get a core shot. So one of the bummers with riding early season POW is there's a definite lacking in snowpack, so it's super easy to hit ground when you're slashing hard. And then there's a lot of rock fields that you don't necessarily see, and they're super easy to hit. I actually hit a rock field on this board and only got a small little core shot. So I knew when it happened, I heard it, I felt it. So at the bottom of the run, I grabbed the wax that I like to carry out of my pack and rubbed wax into the damaged area to, make sure I keep water out of it, and it allowed me to finish my session. But now that we're back home, it's time to fix it properly so it'll last all season long. So first step is take your razor blade, and you want to scratch and scrape out the wax that you put in to the damaged area. So you want to be careful when you're doing so. You don't want to make the core shot any bigger or damage the area anymore. So just a little bit of light scratching. We recommend either using a 2-part epoxy or P-tex to fix your core shots. I prefer P-tex because epoxy can be really messy and it smells bad. But P-tex is a little bit tougher to do, but I like it. It's just as durable. So that's what we're going to go through today. So I cleaned out the core shot to make sure I can get a good clean bond. So the next step is to grab a P-tex stick, and I actually like to use a wood burner. It allows me to put the P-tex right onto the board and then use the wood burner to control how much P-tex I'm putting where. You can also use an open flame source, but that's a little more dangerous. You got to be careful because you do have an open flame going, so you want to be careful of not starting a fire. So that's another reason why I like the wood burner. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting a bunch of P-tex onto the tip of this wood burner, and then I take my knife again and place the P-tex where I want it. I kind of use the knife in place of my finger just so I don't burn myself. It really allows me to control where the P-tex goes and how well it bonds. So I have a lot of P-tex to start with here. That's the deepest area as well, so I'm kind of warming it up after it's already in place, and then applying pressure with a knife just to make sure it's getting a good bond within that core shot. You also want to use a healthy amount of P-tex because you don't want to go short. You also want to take the time and do it right, because when you do, it'll last you all season long. Alright, so I'm going to get a little bit more in there to finish out the actual core shot. And you don't really have to worry about how smooth the surface of the P-tex is, because we're going to come back and we're going to scrape it so it's nice and smooth and flush to the rest of the base. Alright, so again, using the knife to control where the P-tex is going and helps it keep in place. Alright, so that looks pretty good. You want to make sure you have a good amount of P-tex throughout the whole damaged area. You don't want to skimp out in a certain area. So right now I'm just making sure I have about the same amount of P-tex everywhere. So once you're done melting the P-tex into the base, you have to wait for it to cool, and you can see how it's cooling based off the color of it. When it becomes kind of a white color like the actual P-tex stick is, it's ready to be scraped. You don't want to scrape it too early because you can just pull all the P-tex out, and you also can burn yourself if it's still hot. So you want to be careful of those things. Alright, so we're back here. I let it cool down, harden back up, and so it's ready for scraping. So you take your razor blade again, and I like to hold the razor blade at the top and actually pull or push it forward, forcing the P-tex into the board. It still scrapes the wax or scrapes the P-tex, A little bit slower than if you were going at it pushing like this, but with this it's really easy just to grab it and it'll pull all the P-tex out, and then you have to redo it, and that's a bummer. So you just want to do nice easy passes when you're scraping. You don't want to go too hard at it because you don't want to damage the rest of the board. So here we're just doing some nice easy scraping to make sure we get the P-tex down flush to the rest of the base to minimize drag so you can keep riding super fast. It's definitely a little bit of a tedious process, but it's well worth it to not have to worry about your board next time you go out. You definitely don't want a waterlogged board because it decreases the durability drastically. It also makes it heavier, so you're carrying a heavier board up the hill every time you go for another line, which just isn't fun. You want to save all your energy when you're making turns, not carrying your board. So since I got a lot here, I'm going to go ahead and pull the excess carefully away. Being careful that I don't pull any more out than I need in the damaged area. So just scraping ever so slightly, just scraping a little bit off each pass. If you have a deeper scratch, it's definitely tougher to do a P-tex repair. Right here, it looks deeper than it actually is. It's just a scratch or a scrape, basically just through the colored portion of the laminate. So it's really tough to get the P-tex to bond into that shallow of a scrape. So what I did is I just used wax to fill it more, just to reduce drag, so I don't have to worry about that for the rest of the season. You really just want to focus on the core shots because those are the only things that can threaten the integrity of your board. So we're getting to about the right depth of P-tex. So right now I'm actually doing what I said not to do, but I'm holding the blade at a very, very low angle, so there's a very little chance that I will pull all the P-tex out, and I'm just basically moving it back and forth, getting the last little bit, making sure it's nice and flush to the rest of the base. Alrighty, so that's looking pretty good. I can tell that there's a couple little spots where it didn't bond the best, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my wood burner again and just melt the surface a little bit more and make sure I have the best bond throughout the whole P-tex and the base. So you're going to have to let that cool a little bit. Since I didn't really melt it too much, I can go ahead and go back at it just very carefully. Alrighty, so that's nice and flush. It looks really good. You can tell that's going to hold in for the rest of the season. So then you're going to want to take your wax. You can even use candle wax. I'm using snowboard wax right now. And since I have the wood burner out, I'm going to go ahead and use that. You can just rub it on, but if you're putting the time in to fix it, you might as well melt some wax. So I'm just going to melt some wax over where I fixed with P-tex. Once again, not really worrying about if it's smooth or not when I'm putting the wax on, because you're going to go ahead and scrape the wax off. So I put a lot of wax on it. And you got to let the wax cool just so you make sure the most amount of wax gets into the P-tex and the base as possible. So when I'm scraping wax, I definitely like to push the wax into the board like we were doing with the P-tex, and just doing nice easy passes scraping the excess wax. You don't want to leave a lot of excess wax because that's one way to increase a lot of drag in an area. So just doing some scrapes here, making sure it's nice and clean, and it feels really nice and flush to the touch. So I'm pretty satisfied with this fix. And that is how you repair a core shot on your GET Longboards Powder Skate using P-tex. Thanks for watching. Make sure to check us out at getlongboards.com and shoot us an email with any questions, comments, or concerns. Peace.